Hello there, my name is Arash Farnoosh, professor at IFE School. First, I would like to welcome you to this amazing MOOC designed specifically for you. During this session, we will see that oil, natural gas, and coal are the dominant resources in the global energy mix today, and they will probably remain so in the coming years. If we observe what happened during the last century, population, economic wealth, and energy consumption grew almost without any interruption. Global population was 1.6 billion in 1900, 2.5 billion 50 years later, and we are more than 7 billion human beings today. Wealth, estimated by the gross domestic product in real value, has been multiplied by a factor of 40 over the same period. Energy consumption has been both a support and a consequence of this growth, rising from slightly less than 1 billion tons of oil equivalent at the beginning of the century to more than 13 billion tons today. However, this is not one single type of energy, but several. Today, we hear a lot about energy transition, but don't forget that the global energy mix has been changing constantly since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. As a matter of fact, we moved from a traditional mix based almost entirely on wood at the beginning of the 19th century to a much more diversified energy supply today. Indeed, our current primary energy consumption is powered by oil, which makes up more than a third of the energy source, whilst coal supplies 28% and natural gas provides 23% of the total. Then comes hydro with 7%, nuclear energy with 4%, and modern renewable energies such as wind, geothermal, and solar with 3%. Renewable energies are mainly used for power generation. Primary energy needs to be processed and transported before being available for end users. From the 13 billion tons of oil equivalent of primary energy, we get only 9 billion tons in final energy after withdrawing transformation and transmission losses. Fossil resources are dominant in the present energy mix because so far they appear to be the most economic and efficient energy sources for our main uses. Heat, for example, that accounts for almost half of our needs, is mainly provided by fossil resources. Transport, which is almost 1/3 of the global energy demand, relies almost entirely on oil today, and only 1% on electricity. Finally, coal and natural gas still account for more than 2/3 of global electric power generation. Renewable sources of energy are making the headlines these days. Indeed, in the power sector, 68% of net capacity additions last year were renewables. We see electricity prices going down because of the development of the very low-cost solar and wind installations. However, these changes are not yet visible in the global energy mix. Solar, wind, biomass, or geothermal still represent less than 4% of total primary energy consumption today. The reason is that energy systems need heavy infrastructures. Therefore, they require time to evolve. Due to this inertia, the mix will not change rapidly, and fossil resources will remain the dominant fuels in the energy mix for many years ahead. By looking at the global energy demand chart, we can observe that the consumption growth of renewables does not necessarily lead to less demand for fossil energies. The world in which we live today is a world of resource addition and not substitution, and it is always more thirsty for new energy resources. Last but not the least, we should not forget that global population keeps increasing and more countries are developing. Therefore, our energy system will definitely face several challenges in the coming decades. Actually, this is what my colleague Sydney will tell you about in the next video. He will introduce you to the constraints of today's energy mix and explain you that this ongoing energy transition is probably the most single important challenge of the whole century. But before I let you go, please remember some important items. First, global primary energy consumption has grown by a factor of 13 since the beginning of the 20th century, driven by population growth and economic development. Next, more than 80% of this consumption is supplied by fossil fuels such as oil, coal, and natural gas. And finally, we hear a lot about the energy transition and the boom of renewables. However, they are not yet visible in the global figures. For the time being, the growth of renewables does not replace fossil resources consumption, and the world keeps consuming more of each energy. Thank you very much indeed, my friends. Au revoir.